Welcome to Small Business, Big Network, the podcast for small business owners who want big results from their networking. I'm Liz Drury, a freelance voiceover artist who knows that if you're not working, then networking could help. Philip Wride is an entrepreneur who helps female coaches with their tech. He says that one of the ways he likes to grow his network is by appearing on podcasts. Thank you very much for being my guest on the podcast today, Philip.
Thanks, Liz. Great to be here.
Now, you're an entrepreneur and an author who I think it's fair to say has had quite a journey, which we're going to dig into in a minute. But let's go back to the beginning first. What was your first ever job, and did you always want to be an entrepreneur?
What a great question to start with. Did I always want to be an entrepreneur? I think I sort of naturally fell into entrepreneurship. And I say that because I guess my first foray, not really as a job, but more as a passion. So I started at the age of 16, playing video games online with friends from school.
Yeah.
And that led to posting in communities, getting involved, writing things, flipping websites and, buying them and selling them, running my own events. So I class that as being an entrepreneur, even at that early age. And so I guess it's something that I naturally fell into because I had a passion for the space that I was in, which is video games, the online space, playing competitively. And that's something that I've been involved in now for over 20 years.
Yeah.
I think there were other influences in my life as well that showed that it is possible. So my mum is a big influence. She has had her own business over the years. And I've always been someone who liked freedom. It's my highest level value. And the flexibility that comes with entrepreneurship. Yes, okay, maybe ups and downs, but I guess that decision of how do I want to spend my time? What is it that I want to work on? Do I want to try one thing? Do I want to try three things? Do I want to, change every now and again and see what happens and explore? That's always something that has resonated with me just because of the type of person that I am.
Yeah. So you started doing these things around the age of 16. At what point did you think, actually, this is my career now? This is what I'm doing. I'm not going to go work for anybody else.
Yeah, so interesting. I mean, I have been employed over the years. I should point that out because there have been opportunities that have presented themselves and things with the various businesses that I've had have not worked out, which I'll touch on shortly. I think that, switch over point to say, maybe I can structure this, maybe I can make it more of a formal thing, started to come through university. So I was fortunate enough to be headhunted by one of the world's top gaming teams at the time. So joining their management team, focusing on sponsorship and branding and media opportunities and things like that. And so I was doing that through my university degree. So I was doing it in the background while I was studying and going to classes and lectures and things. And then, that experience working with big brands. So the team was sponsored by Intel.
Yeah.
So going to their HQ in Swindon in the UK and having meetings about projects and sponsorships and all those sorts of things. I then came out of university. It's like, what do I do now? Maybe I'll set up a business. So where I had been earning small amounts from the stuff that I'd been doing in the online space before, I now formalized it and said, right, actually, let's make this a business. Let's see what I can build.
Yeah.
And I was quite fortunate. I managed to get some projects for Microsoft, for Intel, for Telefonica, so some recognizable brands. And that was then until the 2008 financial crash. So that was when the first business closed. And that's where I made the comment of, I have also been employed.
Yeah.
So that situation was a great learning opportunity. Some fantastic projects enabled me to do some amazing things. Through the work that I was doing within that first business, I was invited to number 10 because I'd been consulting on a government project for online safety for kids. So it's like, there are experiences that I've had which have been fantastic as an entrepreneur. There have also been some that have been really challenging.
Yeah.
So closing that first business was like, now what do I do?
Yeah. And what was the next step? You had to change direction, I guess.
So I stayed in the industry, but got a job. I was offered the opportunity to join EA Sports and work on the FIFA video game. So in a role that I hadn't done before on a game that I was familiar with and a company that I was familiar with. So new opportunity, new learning, coming back to that flexibility and variety. I was like, oh, this could be interesting. Yeah, let's go for it. Why not? So yes, I was fortunate for that. And life presents you with different opportunities. So I closed that first business. So this was sort of early 2009. And I had secured a job for Crystal. So their sort of ski company, doing the winter tour packages and things like that. So I was like, oh, go and be a winter rep. Okay, well, that's something that I can do. And then I got offered this opportunity with EA Sports, which was contracted indefinitely, having to move from Derbyshire down to Surrey in the UK. And I was like, let's weigh this up. One is stability, opportunity somewhere else around the world. One is variable, and I've got to move, and then I've got to fund everything myself, but it's in an industry that I know and enjoy. Obviously, my parents were like, take the skiing one. And I was like, no, let's take the one that's interesting. So I did that, and I joined EA Sports and was there for nearly 2 years working on a couple of their games. So entrepreneurship, I then, rather than being self-employed, I became an entrepreneur for them. How can we grow things? How can we develop the product? How can we build a community? So I was fortunate enough to be involved in launching their first influencer program, which, we look at the industries now, and influencer programs are 2 a penny and everybody's doing them. And it's like, that's a way to get the marketing spend and the return that we're looking for. Then back in 2009 and 10, it was very early days. But, those were the things that I was able to get involved in.
And so what was the next step after that? Did you then start another business after this?
So I did that for a couple of years and then went into the tech space. So working for email marketing platforms, again, great experiences. So using what I'd already learned from being in the video game space, and I say from the video game space, I've always been involved in that space. It's either been front and center, or I've had a job and it's been a side hustle. So I've still had that entrepreneur spirit in the background, even if it hasn't been my main thing at the time. So I went and worked for those platforms, working on client strategy, helping them build their email automations and things like that. So again, that was a great opportunity for me to learn a new skill set, which I can then use wherever, and I have done. So that, was the next couple of years. And then 2015, it all changed, because I'd been working for a company in London. So I was doing the commute in and out of London, hated it, did not get on with the company that I was working for. So I'd done a shift or a stint with sort of an email marketing platform, and I'd done some work with a mobile app startup. And then I was into a company looking at social media strategy. So an extension to, digital channels, being online, the stuff that I'd already done previously. And I was just like, this company, this is not a fit. So I did the 3-month probation. So I'd still been doing some of the gaming stuff in the background, ad hoc projects and things like that. And I said, time for a change. So I packed everything up and moved to Dubai. And started from zero.
Yes, that was my next question, was about the fact that you're from the UK, but that isn't where you're based at the moment. So what was it that took you to Dubai?
So, one, the weather. I say that and everybody laughs, because it's like, well, yeah, but it's clinically proven that sunshine is a positive mood.
It's good for you,
It's good for you. So when I looked at, so I visited twice on holiday because my dad had moved over here for work. So I came to visit him on holiday and was like, I'm in a job I don't like, having to do the commute, it's raining all the time, or I can move and see what I can do in the sunshine. And it was like, that's a really hard decision. So yes, I moved over, I packed everything up in the UK, handed back my flats because I'd been renting, finished the probation on that job and was like, thanks, but no thanks, and moved over and started from scratch. And then what did I do when I moved over? I got a gaming project consulting for a good friend back in the UK, one of the teams that I was familiar with. And then I decided to build my own tech startup, a mobile app. So building on the experience that I'd gained. So now I was back to being an entrepreneur front and center, trying to build a platform, trying to build a business, some success, some struggles. Too early, wrong part of the world. Those sorts of challenges that we often hear. I was in the middle of that because I was building a platform for teams to better engage their fans. So taking them off social media into more of an owned platform. And, you know, if you're an entrepreneur in the digital space, you may hear that owned versus earned. You know, how do we work all this? You know, and how do we make use of the channels or the spaces that we've got? So that whole mobile app platform was about, hey, let's try and take those fans off social media, because then we can understand more about them, we can capture the data, and maybe we can monetize them through subscriptions and direct purchases and things like that. So yeah, that started reasonably well. Went through a tech accelerator program here in the UAE, got some initial funding, got a couple of teams on board, was getting all the data, everybody was excited, and then both of those teams got acquired and said, yeah, mobile strategy, not something we're looking at right now. We'll stop using this, thanks very much. So I was like, oh, there's another hammer blow, congratulations. So it took me a while to come to terms with the fact that, you know, I was now in a challenging place, not necessarily from the entrepreneurial perspective, because the UAE is great for supporting entrepreneurs. There's lots of initiatives, and you know, they want those SMEs to come through and sort of disrupt the status quo and all that sort of stuff. It's more the fact that who I was trying to serve and my target audience, the big teams and event organizers in esports and gaming, were not in the Middle East.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I struggled, I kept going for a bit, you know, again, got some other side projects and things. I was like, no, I'm going to have to go and do something different. So I was fortunate to then be parachuted into one of my former colleagues' Dubai offices, back into the sort of the email space and doing strategy work for clients. And that actually enabled me to then start building email automations and things for billion-dollar brands, airlines, streaming platforms like Netflix. And it was like, again, great experience, use of what I'd already done, building on it to take another step forward. So that journey as an entrepreneur has been very hit and miss for me, but it's given me a really great set of experiences, a set of skills that I can then use in many different ways. So yeah, sometimes the businesses that I've started, they've done well initially, and then, you know, things have happened. But that I now look back on and say, it's part of the journey.
Yeah.
Some fantastic learnings that I'm now applying as I continue to move forward.
Yeah. Now, tell us what happened to you in January 2020, because this was quite a turning point in your life, I suppose, a big part of your journey.
Yes. So everybody thinks about 2020 as COVID, which is true, and it affected me in the same way as many others. But January 2020, I broke my neck playing rugby. And I didn't know it was broken for 7 weeks.
Oh, wow.
So I was playing rugby for a local team here in the local league. We were fortunate enough to have access to a physio. So after the collision, you know, when I'd managed to stumble off the pitch, not been able to move my neck, do the 40-minute drive home, sleep on it, and then started to go to physio. I went to physio for several weeks. So I managed to get myself a soft collar to support my neck, and it's like, I can't move anything. It almost feels like I've done a really hard gym session, because if you overdo yourself, you may have had the experience of, it's like, I can't feel my arms, or I can't feel my legs, and it was like that. So I was like, let's go to the physio, let's get them to work on it, see if they can loosen it off a bit. And then 7 weeks later of this process, the physio goes, it's not really changing. Maybe you should go and get some scans.
Yeah.
So I did. Got the assessments. Yeah, it's broken. We want to put plate and screws in. It's going to be 3 to 6 hours worth of surgery. Are you ready for it? And I was like, nope. I really don't want the surgery, and I actually can't afford it.
Yeah.
So I made that decision that said, I'm not going to have surgery. I'm going to put faith in my body and see what happens. And thankfully, I got another set of scans 18 months later, and the new consultant was amazed, because it's like, your body has grown bone around the break. You've got full range of movement. You've got strength. It's almost like it never happened.
Wow.
So yes, he was amazed. Also because all the research that he could find and case studies from other patients and things was like, Most people wait a maximum of 3 weeks and have surgery. There, I couldn't find anybody silly enough to not have surgery. So I was like, okay, fine, I'll take that. So yes, that was January 2020 when it happened. And obviously then we moved into the points, because I waited the 7 weeks, that's when the lockdown started to happen. So I didn't have the surgery, and then I was fighting to keep the business going because the lockdowns happened. And here in Dubai, it was very different from a lot of places. We had nightly curfews. They would spray the streets, so you couldn't go out. You had to get a sort of a green chit or a pass to go grocery shopping within sort of windows, a couple of days a week and things like that. So it was tough. And being in marketing and as a strategist and doing projects, what got cut? Everybody's marketing budgets, because there was so much uncertainty. So all the events that I was pitching disappeared. A lot of the marketing projects disappeared. So actually my 2020 was struggling to keep things going, and the faith in my ability to heal my neck, and trying to keep the business going through all the COVID lockdowns. So it was a fantastic year for me.
Now, clearly you came through all of that. So tell me something about your current business and who it is help.
Yeah, great question. So 2021, sort of spring, maybe Easter time, I started personal development, and I took an early course. I fell into one of those traps of, here's a YouTube advert. So I was like, what have I got to lose? So I clicked it, bought the course, went through and was asked an interesting question. And it was, what impact and contribution have you made, and what's going to be said at your funeral?
Wow, yeah.
And that's like, whoa, I wasn't expecting that. But it started to get me thinking. How can I use the skills and experience that I've got to support people to have more impact? Doing it for big corporates is like, okay, I've done something that they wanted me to do, but is it having an impact and a contribution to, to the bigger picture? Not really. So, I started on that path, and if I jump forward a little bit to, the here and now, yes, there have been a couple of twists and turns since I started that process in 2021. Now, I am supporting female coaches with their tech. So sales funnels, email automations, using the experience and the skills that I developed over the years to say, look, if you're a coach, you're probably wanting to do this for two reasons. One, to have that freedom, which is also my highest level value, have more time with friends and family and being able to do things, and because you want impact. And if that's true, then you don't want to get bogged down in all the tech.
Yeah.
So let me help. I can have impact by supporting you. You can have impact because you don't have to worry about the tech.
Yeah.
And everybody wins.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm now focusing on, is to say, look, there's an opportunity here. I've got the skills and experience to help you. Take on that heavy lifting, do the build, do the management, do the test and optimize, all those sorts of things so that you can focus on attracting your clients and delivering your service to them and changing their lives.
Yeah. I can imagine that being a very popular service, because I hate doing all that kind of stuff.
Yes. Well, that's it. It's like you can watch the YouTube videos, you can get the courses, you can log into the platforms, and then suddenly you look at the clock and 3 hours has gone.
Yeah.
And you're like, I actually haven't done very much. And it's trying to help people move away from that to say, look, there are people around the world, whether it's me or somebody else, you can outsource to. You can find a partner to help you with this. And I've done exactly the same in areas of my business. I go to Upwork and I go to Fiverr, and a great example is my book. When I wrote that, I didn't know how to do the formatting. I didn't know the best way to set stuff up on Amazon. I didn't know the best way to do a cover. I outsourced all of that. I found people who offered that service and had the experience. It was like, can you help me? Yes, great. Thank you very much. Let's do it.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to be that resource to female coaches so that, as I said, they can focus on the delivery side and having that impact.
Yeah. So you just mentioned books there. So tell me about the books that you've written. Who are they for, and what do people get from them?
Yeah, so I have, so far, it's an ongoing process, I've written 2 books. So the first one is for parents, and it's about managing screen time for their kids and online safety, and how to use video games to improve math skills. So I mentioned the journey of that personal development and that question of impact and contribution has had a couple of twists and turns.
Yeah.
There was a period for a year where I was focusing on supporting parents. I was doing workshops and going into schools and speaking to parents about online safety and managing screen time and, how to improve math skills, because everybody had spent lockdown doing what? Oh, playing games. So, kids were naturally like, I want the device. I want to do the fun stuff. So that is the first book. It's split into two halves. So the first half is about managing screen time and online safety, and the second half is how to use different video games. So some of the popular ones for the younger ages: Roblox, Minecraft, FIFA, Fortnite, Among Us, those sorts of games. How to identify things inside them and be able to use those as sort of a hook for different types of maths questions.
Yeah.
So that was the first book. The second book came about while I was planning some online training for parents on these very topics. And I created a model and framework about the things impacting parents. That's almost the hidden things impacting parents when it relates to screen time and safety that they're not aware of. So one of the boxes, for example, was relationships. A parent's relationship with technology impacts their child's relationship with technology. But parents don't often see that.
Yeah.
Oh, me scrolling it's fine. It's have no impact. That's not true.
Yeah.
A child will see that and say, well, it's okay for you.
Yeah.
Why is it not okay for me?
Yeah.
So I created this model of 12 things and looked at it and went, that's not just about screen time. That's actually a life model. These 12 things can impact all sorts of different areas. Location, relationships I've just mentioned, how we use our time. And so I said, I recognize myself in this. If I take this as a life model, there are things and challenges that I've faced and had to deal with, changes that I've made. I need to share this. And so I started writing the second book. So the second book is about life's 12 hidden chains that hold us back and how to break them so that we can find more success, more happiness, more freedom, whether that's time, whether it's financial, whether it's location freedom. So a lot of it is based on my own personal experiences and the journey that I've been on since breaking my neck. Some of it is, stories from conversations I've had with other people, and there are exercises. So it's structured in a way where it takes readers through a process. There are exercises for them to do to help uncover the chains in their own life, and then gives them the steps of, okay, now that we know all this, what can we do to move forward? What can we do to make those changes and move towards the freedom, the dreams, the goals that we have?
Yeah, that sounds really good. Yeah, something that we can all learn from, I'm sure. So let's talk a little bit about networking now. How have you grown your network around your business?
Great question. So there's a couple of things that I am doing. So conversations like this to an audience with the podcast host, it's a great way to network because you start to understand people in more detail. So, understanding you, who it is you're serving, that's great. You now know what I do and who I am, which means there's a potential opportunity, maybe not now, maybe 6 months, of you go, I remember a conversation with Philip. I can do an introduction. And I say that because one of the biggest projects that I've had over the past year is somebody that I used to play rugby with. We lived in the same building, and our partners worked together.
Yeah.
He's since left the UAE, but because he knows what it is that I do and the experience that I have, I was the first person that he called for this particular project.
Yeah.
So that's long-term networking from like 7 years ago. So being on podcasts, having these conversations with the hosts, supporting an audience is one. And it's been great for, again, building, I guess, a different type of connection, because it's when you're having conversations with a host and doing the background conversation of, okay, who are you? What have you done? What are you focusing on? That works both ways.
Yeah.
So I also get to understand about the hosts, what it is that they're doing, their audience, who it is that they're serving. LinkedIn is one of the channels that I'm focusing on. So that's been great. You have the search functions. You can find people by role or by company or location.
Yeah.
So building those connections, commenting on posts, getting into the DMs and having private conversations, and again, understanding more about people, what it is that they're doing, hopes, dreams, fears, all that sort of stuff. So those have been really useful tools for me and things that I'm continuing to test and try and refine. Live events are also great. So I went to an event the other week. It was positioned as for women, so it was a sort of a female network of business owners and entrepreneurs and wanting to learn more and all that sort of stuff. I was one of 2 guys in the room. Okay, it was a small audience of sort of 20 of us, but it's like I was able to have some fantastic conversations because I was there in the room.
Yeah.
And sometimes, yes, you can do stuff online, and online is powerful, and you can potentially reach a much wider and broader audience in one go. But sometimes, to build that personal connection, you need that FaceTime, you need that one-to-one, you need to be in the same physical location. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a very different experience, isn't it?
Yes.
So how would you say that networking has helped your business?
It's undeniably one of the biggest ways that I've been able to get business over the years. Whether that's through people sharing and amplifying content, sometimes it's referrals for projects, sometimes it's been referrals for jobs. I gave you 2 examples. So one big project that I've had recently, which is from someone 6 years ago that I spent some time with. Well, I mentioned also being parachuted into, an ex-colleague's Dubai office. So, well, that's network.
Yes.
Because again, they still know who I am.
Yeah.
They know what it is that I've done for them previously and how we've worked together. So for him, it was a no-brainer of Phil's resources available. Great, let's go.
Yeah.
So I think throughout my whole career, networking has played a huge part in terms of my ability to get some of the projects, explore new opportunities, get involved in different things and build layers to the businesses that I've had.
Yeah. So my final question then, Philip, if people want to know more about you and your business or your books, what is the best place for them to find you?
So I am on LinkedIn and Facebook. Those are my 2 main channels. You can just search for the name. And if you want to understand more about the journey that I've been on, I mentioned the 12 chains that hold us back. There's actually a free sort of mini podcast, really. It's a couple of audio files that I've put together. There's 3 of them in total, about 15 minutes each. And that, I guess, summarizes the book. So the first episode is, these are the 12 chains. Second episode is, which are the ones that are easiest to break? And then the third episode is, here are the 4 steps to break a chain. So if you're not someone who enjoys sitting down with a good book, you can get a short and summarized audio version, and that is available at 3lifesecrets.com. So that's the number 3.
Yeah.
Because I take people, it's the 3 episodes. That's why it's 3 Life Secrets. And so, yes, people can just register for that. They'll get access to those audio episodes and then they can listen whenever they want. So that's a way to get more about sort of the core elements of my book.
Lovely. Well, thank you very much for being my guest. I've really enjoyed hearing your story. And I'm sure it's not the end of the story. Maybe you'll need to come back in a few years' time and tell us more.
Yes, absolutely.
Thanks for listening to Small Business, Big Network. If you found this podcast useful, please do rate, review and subscribe. And don't forget to share it with the rest of your network too.